his own people. He might find, as Christian had, that their beliefs and their morality cut against the grain of his own. For Christian, the past he believed and that had given him identity had been wrenched out of his hands, shown to be a fabrication created out of the will to survive, easy to understand but not to admire, and bitterly hard to own. If Monk were at last to know himself as most people do automatically, the religious ties, the allegiances, the family loves and hates, might he too discover a stranger inside his skin, and one he could not like? He turned away from the river and walked along the footpath toward the nearest place where he could cross the street through the traffic and catch the omnibus home. Perhaps he would write to Beth again, but not yet. He needed to know more. Christian's experience weighed on him and would not let him rest. But he was also afraid, because the possibilities were too many and too disturbing, and what he had created was too dear to risk. Chapter 1. There was a noise outside the women's clinic in Coldbath Square. Hester was on night duty. She turned from the stove as the street door opened, the wood still in her hand. 3 women stood in the entrance, half supporting each other. Their cheap clothes were torn and splattered with blood, their faces streaked with it, skin yellow in the light from the gas lamp on the wall. One of them, her fair hair coming loose from an untidy knot, held her left hand as if she feared the wrist were broken. The middle woman was taller, her dark hair loose, and she was gasping, finding it difficult to get her breath. There was blood on the torn front of her satin dress and smeared across her high cheekbones. The third woman was older, well into her 30s, and there were bruises purpling on her arms, her neck, and her jaw. "Hey, missus," she said, urging the others inside into the warmth of the long room with its scrub-board floor and whitewashed walls. "Mrs. Monk, you got to give us an hand again. Kitty is in a right mess, and me and all. And I think as Lizzie's broke her wrist." Hester put down the wood and came forward, glancing only once behind her to make sure that Margaret was already getting hot water, cloths, bandages, and the herbs to steep, which would make cleaning the wounds easier and less painful. It was the purpose of this place to care for women of the streets who were injured or ill, but who could not pay a doctor and would be turned away from more respectable charities. It had been the idea of her friend, Calandra Daviot, and Calandra had provided the initial funds before events in her personal life had taken her out of London. It was through her also that Hester had met Margaret Ballinger, desperate to escape a respectable but uninteresting proposal of marriage. Her undertaking work like this had alarmed the gentleman in question so much, he had at the last moment balked at making the offer, to Margaret's relief and her mother's chagrin. Now Hester guided the first woman to one of the chairs in the centre of the floor beside the table. "Come in, Nell," she urged. "Sit down." She shook her head. "Did Willie beat you again? Surely you can find a better man." She looked at the bruises on Nell's arms, plainly made by a gripping hand. "At my age," Nell said bitterly, easing herself into the chair. "Come on, Mrs. Monk. You mean well, I dare say, but your feet ain't on the ground. Not unless you're offering that nice-looking old man of yours." She leered ruefully. "Then I might take you up one day. He's got an air about him as he could be something real special. Kind of mean, but fun, if you know what I'm saying." She gave a guffaw of laughter, which turned into a racking cough, and she bent double over her knees as the paroxysm shook her. Without being asked, Margaret poured a little whiskey out of a bottle, replaced the cork, and added hot water from the kettle. Wordlessly she held it until Nell...